right, Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
David Goodman.
And since, like the previous gentleman that have been testifying, you haven't testified in a while in district court, could you spell your last name for us, please?
It's Goodman.
Okay. In June of 2007, were you employed with the Minot Police Department?
Yes, I was.
What were the dates of your employment with the Minot Police Department?
Started in May of 1990, and I retired in June of 2021.
Okay. And could you give us a rundown of your training and experience?
The 31 years of law enforcement experience. I started in dispatch. I was in that for about a year and a half. Hired on as a police officer, went to the police academy in Bismarck, attended that and graduated from that. Numerous hours of police training on various police topics, including investigative topics, and college, high school.
We won't ask you for the graduation dates in high school.
Okay.
So you were a licensed peace officer during that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. And on June 4th of 2007, what was your role with the Minot Police Department?
I was a sergeant in the investigations division.
Okay. Now, was that your role through the end of your career as well?
It was, yes.
Okay. How did you come to be involved in this case?
I was off duty, and I received a call from Lieutenant Rob White. I believe he was the shift commander that night, and he stated that detectives were out at the scene, and they were asking for additional manpower, so I came in to assist with that.
Now, when you say shift commander, does that just mean the person who's basically in charge of the day-to-day operations of the police department in that moment?
At that moment, and the patrol shift that is out in the street, yes.
Okay. So did you then respond to for that incident that you were called out on?
I did, yes.
Okay. And where did you respond to?
I responded initially to the police department. At that time, our vehicles were left at the police department, so I went there in my own vehicle. I got the gear and stuff that I needed to go up to the residence.
When you say the gear, what do you mean by that?
Well, just like my radio, my call-out bag, just my bag that would have stuff that I may need while I'm up at the scene.
Okay. So you drove your personal vehicle to the police department and got a vehicle that was owned by the city?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you drove that vehicle to the scene?
Yes.
And what happened when you arrived at the scene?
I met with the officers that were on scene, and they kind of briefed me on what they had up there at that point. I looked over the scene. I had brought a crime scope that we had used at that time up to the scene.
What is a crime scope?
It's just it's a light that's used to try and detect certain fibers or fluids that might not be seen by the naked eye.
So to a layman, is that the sort of thing that might be used to look for, say, blood or vomit or something like that, bodily fluids?
That's correct.
Okay. What happened next?
We had kind of an ongoing discussion amongst the investigators that were there. We looked at the body. We saw Anita Knutson's body laying on her bed.
Could you describe that for us, please?
She was laying, she had a robe, very light pink colored robe on, and she was flopped over, kind of sitting on her legs, and her head was near the foot of the bed, and she was face down. I could see on the back of her robe, there was a small blood spot, kind of in the middle of the back of the robe, and I kind of suspected that she might have an injury somewhere on her back. Excuse me.
What happened next?
We discussed again what we were going to do to proceed, and we decided that we wanted to look at her body closer just to see what we could determine was possibly the cause of her death, and go from there. So we had another detective that was on her way up to the scene, and she was bringing us some paper that we would use to lay down on the carpet just to keep it as to try not to contaminate the scene.
Is that the butcher paper that we're talking about, like 4 feet wide, rolls that are
Yes.
200 feet or whatever?
Yeah, I always thought it reminded me of what every grade school has with the rolls of paper that they rip for art projects and stuff. So but that's exactly what it was.
Okay, please continue.
We looked at the floor area next to her bed, and just to determine that there wasn't any evidence that we wanted to collect from there. And once Sergeant Murphy was on scene with that paper, she ripped off a chunk and laid it down on the floor so we could put Anita from the bed down onto that paper. So that's what we did. And at that point, we were able to get a closer look on what injuries she had. I noticed a stab to what would be her right chest area, and a stab in or what appeared to be a stab wound to the middle of her sternum. So it seemed obvious that that was more than likely her cause of death.
And how were you able to determine that they were stab wounds?
You could just kind of see the cut in the skin, and I've seen stab wounds many times throughout my career, and it seemed to match up with that.
It was consistent with those other stab wounds that you used?
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
So we also saw her back and noticed that there was no injury on her back. So we were trying to figure that out, and the best I could tell is it looked like the stab wound to her right chest area had run down and kind of back around onto her back as she was maneuvering to try and get up or whatever she was doing at that point when she ended up face down.
Okay.
Face down, excuse me.
And that's how you saw her, was face down when you came in?
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
We took pictures of the scene, and we had assigned one of the investigators that was there as the evidence custodian. He kind of set up an area out in the kitchen, living room area where any evidence that was collected was brought to him, and we just kind of proceeded with that at that point.
So a separate spot for collection?
Well, a separate spot just to bring all the evidence to. Just
Okay.
an area that would be kind of away from the scene of the homicide, but yet still in the apartment, so we could just kind of take everything to that one officer so he could record it. And
So just for purposes of inventory
correct.
and catalog, make sure that everything was recorded, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
We began to take pictures, and I don't remember exactly who took pictures, but began to take pictures of the apartment. I noticed that her room, I just kind of took a mental note that her room seemed to be not in disarray. There were things set up on her dresser and stuff that weren't tipped over, so it didn't appear that there was any sort of a scuffle. I was trying to see if, in my mind, if I could come up with a motive, what took place or what had happened. I noticed her purse was sitting there, had cash visible in it, so it didn't appear to be a robbery or a burglary or anything like that.
Now, you've seen other crime scenes in your history as a detective with the Minot Police Department.
Yes.
And you said that this one, things weren't disturbed.
Things did not appear to be disturbed to indicate that there was a scuffle of any kind.
In those other crime scenes that you've seen, disturbed things, do those usually indicate that a scuffle, a fight of some kind had occurred?
Yes, I've seen that over my career where things are tipped over or messed up.
So the absence of that indicates that we don't know if there was or was not, but there's no evidence of a fight.
I did not see any evidence of a fight or a scuffle at all.
Okay, please continue.
There got to be a point where there was people gathering outside the apartment. So I made contact with them outside, talked with them a little bit. We had a discussion amongst us that two of us would go down to the police department and start doing interviews there, trying to get them away from the scene and in a more organized area. I believe that was Detective Barnard and Sergeant Nancy Murphy that were going to go to the police department to meet with witnesses or friends or family that were gathering at the apartment. I talked to a couple of females outside the apartment who stated they were friends of Anita, and I asked them to go to the police department and ask for Detective Barnard.
Now, were you there on scene when community ambulance came for the body?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and describe that process for us, please.
I had, not too long before that, I had met with Anita's aunt and the gentleman that was with her. They were at the scene, and she stated that she wanted to remain there until Anita's body was removed from the scene. I told her that I felt that that was close because we had, I believe, dispatch reach out to community ambulance, and I knew that they were on their way up there. By that time, it was getting pretty late. It was pushing, I think, towards midnight, maybe 11:30 to midnight. So they did arrive on scene with the community ambulance vehicle. We had, again, discussed amongst ourselves that we wanted somebody to make a positive identification of Anita, somebody that knew her. So I went back out and I spoke with her aunt and the gentleman that was with her, and they both stated they'd be willing to do that. But again, the gentleman with her said that he would be the one to do it, and that he had known her for approximately 15 years, I believe. So he came in. By that time, community ambulance had been into the apartment, and we assisted them in putting her into a body bag. And we had her on the gurney, moved out to the living room, and I unzipped the body bag enough just so he could see her face, and he said right away that he was 100% sure that was Anita.
So he identified the victim of the homicide as Anita Knutson?
He did, yes.
Okay. What happened next?
At that point, her body was removed from the scene. We continued to process the scene and collect anything that we thought was of any possible evidentiary value. And I had also been asked by one of the other investigators to make contact with the maintenance man who was standing outside and visit with him about Anita's window and the screen that was in her window, and just kind of what he knew about this. So at some point in all of that, I did go out and meet with him.
When Anita's body was still at the scene prior to being transported away from there by community ambulance, did Nichole Rice come to the scene during that period of time?
I believe she was outside the residence, but she was not inside at all, no.
So she would have been outside the residence, and you testified a moment ago that Anita's body was put into a body bag?
Correct.
Like the black plastic that we see on TV?
Yes.
Can you see through that black plastic?
No.
If you could, you wouldn't have had to unzip it for the identification.
Correct.
Right? So the defendant could not have seen what Anita looked like because the body was in the bag the entire time it was transported to the...
Objection, Your Honor. He's testifying.
Sustained.
Could she have seen the body at that point?
No.
What happened next in the investigation?
As I was indicating, I went out and I made contact with the maintenance man, Marty Arnell, and I asked if he'd provide me with a recorded statement, and he said that he would. So we had our crime scene van there, and it was just kind of a convenient spot to go that was just away from everybody else that was gathering. So we went inside the van, and I obtained a recorded statement about what he had found that morning and just kind of his involvement in this.
Was he cooperative with you?
Very cooperative, yes.
And when you were in your career as a detective with the Minot Police Department, have you had cause to sometimes to figure out if someone's being deceptive with you?
Yes.
Was there anything to indicate that Mr. Arnell was being deceptive when he was speaking with you?
No, not at all.
Okay. What happened next in the investigation?
We collected all that evidence. We ended up taking it out to the crime scene van, and we eventually transported that to the police department, where we took it from the crime scene van into the Minot Police Department crime lab areas where it was stored for a while. It's a secured area, and we chose to store it there just because it was easy access for us investigators while this was still a very active investigation.
Okay. Was the scene itself secured overnight?
The scene was secured, and we didn't release the scene at all. We kept an officer there overnight just to make sure that it was protected.
Did you return to that scene the next morning?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose for returning to the scene?
I returned to the scene with Jason Sunbakken. He and I went up there to finish up some measuring to see if there was anything of any evidentiary value that we would have missed the night before. I don't recall that there was. I'm not sure on that though. But our main purpose was to measure out the apartment so he could do a decent diagram of the apartment and the scene.
Were you present with him when he did those measurements and made the diagram?
Yes, I was.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, Detective Goodman had handed you a document. Do you recognize that document?
I do, yes.
Is that a true and accurate copy of that document?
Yes.
Is that the diagram that was created?
Yes, appears to be.
That's a one-page document, is that correct?
Yes.
State moves to enter Exhibit 10 into evidence, Your Honor.
Objection, Your Honor. He didn't show it to me on his walk-up. I asked him to take a look at it. I don't know what he's showing to him. I'd just like to take a look at it.
You may.
Good to go. Thank you. Just gotta show it to me, bud.
Don't call me Bud.
Keep your comments based on the case, gentlemen.
Thank you.
No objection, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 10 is received without objection.
So that is the diagram of the apartment?
Yes.
And does that show where Anita's body was found?
Yes, it does.
What happened next?
At that point, we were finishing up there. We had discussed with other investigators whether we needed to hold the scene any longer. We didn't feel we needed to. We wanted Anita's roommate, Nichole Thomas, it was at the time.
Is that the defendant here today?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Please continue.
We wanted her to come in and look at her apartment, basically, and see if she noticed anything that was out of the ordinary that she would know that we just weren't catching because we're not in there every day like she would have been.
So you would expect a resident of that apartment to know more about that, something out of place, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. So you brought the defendant there for that purpose?
We didn't bring her there. I think she met us there.
Okay.
If I remember right. And then, yeah, so she came in and looked it over and didn't notice anything that was helpful to us as far as collecting evidence.
Was she asked if there was anything out of place or anything missing?
She wasn't asked that, but she walked to the area of her bedroom door and then with a shocked announcement stated that her iPod was missing.
And was that unusual to you?
I thought it was kind of strange. I thought it was a quick comment that she would make just standing outside her bedroom door, and how she would know an iPod was missing just that quickly.
So
I thought it was strange.
It was almost immediate, her saying that?
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
At that point then, we release the scene, and then just went about the investigation. We had meetings at least daily initially to try and, as a group, come up with what needed to be done next, kind of a to-do list, if you will.
Okay. And what was decided to be done next?
Well, there was, I know at one point we got information that it appeared, and I think this information may have come from Anita's sister, but it appeared that she had a pair of light blue pajamas with ducks on them missing. So I know I was part of that. We had found out that garbages in the area had been emptied on a certain date, and that certain garbage was still on a truck. So I had communication with people with the City of Minot Sanitation, and we arranged a garbage search to see if we could come up with finding these missing pajamas. I worked with other officers that kind of joined me on that, since it's not really the best task in the world to go out and dig through garbage. So we kind of did that as a team to try and make it.
So I suppose rank has its privileges in a moment like that?
It probably did. I didn't realize it at the time, but it probably did.
Did you investigate the knife used in this murder?
I remember when the knife was found. I think I was finishing up the interview with Marty Arnell outside, and I remember just one of the investigators saying something that I could overhear. And as far as me investigating it, I did look into it in different people that I had met with, and I'm not sure at what point of the investigation that was, but I did have some involvement in that, yes.
On the 6th of June of 2007, did you go to Wally's World of Knives?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose of that visit?
Purpose of that visit was just to show somebody that has knowledge on knives a picture of the knife to see if they could give us some direction and where to go with that.
And what did you learn about the knife there?
I learned that it was a cheap knife, that they're a dime a dozen at flea markets, and I think he had mentioned possibly at a powwow maybe, because it had a Indian headdress symbol on one side.
So it's a very common knife.
He didn't really say common, but he just said that they're cheap, but I mean that they would have been probably sold in bulk.
Okay. Did you go through any phone messages involved with this case?
I did, yes.
What phone messages did you go through involved in this case?
I went through the phone messages on Anita's phone.
And did you take photographs of those messages?
I did, yes.
Now, Detective Goodman, I'm handing you 2 sets of photographs. If you could take them out of the packaging there. Do you recognize that set?
Yes,
And what are those photographs of?
just photographs of messages. From one is from her outbox, and one is just one of the messages from her phone.
And are these true and accurate photographs or copies of the photograph that you took of the victim's phone?
Yes,
State moves to enter this into evidence. It's 11A and B, is that correct?
yes.
You could hand me the plastic back and keep the paper. And if you could take it's kind of a trapper keeper type thing there, the orange plastic. Take those out and look at them, please. Oh, excuse me. The state moves to enter Exhibit A, 11A, and 11B into evidence.
Mr. Sand.
No objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibits 11A and 11B are received without objection.
And if you could look at these, please. And are those true and accurate copies of the photographs that you took of those messages?
Yes, they are.
And that's 12A through O, is that correct?
Yes.
State moves to enter Exhibits 12A through O into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
If I can get the plastic back.
State's Exhibits 12A through 12O are received without objection.
Did you interview the defendant on June 12th
Possibly June 11th.
or June 11th, excuse me?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
You may. Make sure your microphones are off.
going to have to kind of circle back to that in a minute, Detective.
Okay.
Now, were you part of a reenactment at the scene?
Yes, I was.
What was that reenactment?
I wanted to go up to the apartment and reenact the idea on whether or not somebody could have entered that window or exited the window of her bedroom as a point of entry and exit.
Now, how was that reenactment done?
We went up there. I had made some calls. I spoke with the property manager to see if I could go up to that same apartment and do this reenactment. I wanted to videotape it, so we had our clerk from our office come up and run the video camera and videotape as we did that reenactment.
So what did you do during the reenactment exactly?
I brought with me a picture of the cut screen, and they had replaced the screen in her bedroom window with a new screen. I had gotten permission from them to do this and to cut the new screen. So looking at the picture, I took a knife and I cut the screen the same way that the screen was cut in Anita's bedroom window during the time of the homicide.
Okay. And what did you learn from that?
I learned that after doing that, I didn't feel that it was possible that the person that committed the homicide entered or exited out the window.
Why is that?
I didn't, in doing it, we tested it with myself and with Sergeant Thompson, who's about my height, a little bit shorter, much skinnier. And then also with our clerk, and she's a shorter, petite gal. And just the screen was stretching and tearing in different areas than the original screen that we had from the time of the homicide.
Okay. Now, what year did you say that you retired from the Minot Police Department?
2021.
Okay. Did this case basically become yours at a certain point?
It was at different times due to the retirement of Detective Barnard. He was the case agent initially. At different times it was not necessarily assigned, but maybe assigned is the best word to use, to a certain individual just so they could be the point of contact for any questions or any new leads that might come in, or that they could certainly also run with the investigation if they had time.
So it's not so much that it was assigned to you, but that you were the only one that was there to do it.
I was, during my time, I remember it being assigned to one of the other investigators before me. Then I think he got promoted out of the office, and then it was assigned to me for a while. And then I would just, any calls about it or questions about the case would be directed to me.
Okay. Now, in your time as a detective with the Minot Police Department, were you contacted by podcasts, TV shows, that sort of thing for information on this case?
Yes.
What sort of entities were contacting you?
I know Crime Watch Daily contacted me. Dateline has contacted me.
Now, was there a certain point when the Minot Police Department kind of made the decision that they were going to shift from not necessarily cooperating to working with those folks?
There was. Yeah, and that was a different TV show, Cold Justice, I believe the name of that one is.
And do you know why there was a change in that?
It got to a point where The administration, I believe, discussed it and decided that at that point we weren't at a point in the investigation where we felt that it could be brought to the prosecutor's office. So I suspect that they decided at that time that they were going to try that.
Now, you were in the detectives part of the Minot Police Department for 14 years before you retired after the murder, or roughly that, right? Because you retired in 2021?
Yes.
In that 14 years, did you have the time with other cases? I'm assuming you had other cases you had to investigate?
During that time, yes, I had other cases to investigate, and cases came in at a steady pace daily. And so there was never really any downtime to look at it. I mean, we had to make a point of getting this case assigned out to somebody to where they were specifically only going to work on this case. Otherwise, it was just constant other cases coming in that needed to be dealt with as well.
So at any point in those 14 years, did you yourself have the time to focus on this matter to give it your full attention?
No.
Mr. Sand, how are you coming over there? Okay. Now, in the 14 years that you investigated this case or were part of the investigation, were there other suspects that came up that needed to be looked at?
Other people came up quite a bit, yes.
Okay. And how did you go about eliminating those people as suspects?
There were different things, different ways. I mean, we'd reach out, we'd try and do everything we could to meet with that person. There was various ways that they were eliminated or kind of checked off our list to where we didn't feel they were any longer a person of interest. I don't know that anyone ever reached the level of being a suspect, but we were able to, just to give a couple examples, one guy talked to us, denied it, then a couple days later came forward and said, I was in jail at that time from, I think, the 1st to the 10th of June. And
so it'd be pretty hard for somebody who was incarcerated at the time to do a murder like this.
Right, and I verified that he was. Another example, a guy that gave information on a guy that lived on the East Coast, I believe, said he was a truck driver. We were able to have law enforcement make contact with him and look at his truck logs and verify that he wasn't anywhere near North Dakota. So yeah, there was nobody that we were looking at that we thought needed to be bumped up to the level of being a suspect in this case.
Okay. During that entire investigation, did you ever determine that the defendant was not a suspect?
No.
And why is that?
I was suspicious of her from the very beginning, just because of her demeanor when she went into the apartment. Some of the her information she was giving she was contradicting herself, and I just wasn't buying what she was telling us. Some of it, one of my first interviews with her, we discussed ahead of time, don't tell me any lies, don't be untruthful about anything, because if it's illegal, I don't care about that. I'm looking at the big picture here. And in that interview, she did lie.
What was the lie?
She lied about what she did on that Saturday night, where she was at, and what she did.
In your experience, your long experience as a detective, is that significant?
I believe it is, yes.
Why is that significant?
because it just, in my mind, shows that she's hiding something. $13.
Now, Detective Goodman, I just handed you a document labeled Exhibit 13. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
What is that document?
This is the transcribed statement that Nichole Thomas at the time gave to me on June 11th.
Okay.
To myself and Sergeant Murphy.
Now, other than a couple of redactions that are in there, you'll find that there's some black lines, I think, pretty deep into the document. Is that a true and accurate copy of that transcript?
Yes, appears to be.
The state moves to enter Exhibit 13 into evidence, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
No objection, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 13 is received without objection.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Sand, do you wish to cross-examine?
I do, sir.
You may proceed.
Detective Goodman, do you know the first time you got on the scene, what time that was and what date that was?
It was June 4th, and I believe it was around, without looking at my report, guessing around 8 p.m. maybe, 7:30, 8 p.m.
And that was Monday, June 4th?
Yes.
Okay. Did you photograph anything at the scene?
I believe we assigned Lieutenant Strandberg to do that, to do the photographs. I don't believe I did.
Okay.
At the scene.
Now, you interviewed a man named Devin Hall a couple of times, correct?
I interviewed him at least once. I think it was only one time.
Okay. Do you remember on June 22nd interviewing him?
Was it in Wolf Point, Montana?
No. Well, let me take another look here. I don't believe this one was, no.
Where?
Did you have a chance to review your reports before you came in today?
I reviewed some, but I didn't review all the
Show you
pages.
a copy of page 16 of your report. Have you read from here to here. Would that refresh your recollection?
Yes. Yeah, it looks like Detective Barnard and I did interview Devin Hall. Devin Hall on June 22nd.
Okay, you see the contents of what's in there?
You want me to read it?
I would like you.
Okay. Okay.
So you recall that conversation with Mr. Hall?
I do, yes.
You recall asking him about the murder weapon?
I recall asking him about a knife.
What did you ask him about the knife?
just if he had recognized the knife, if he had seen the knife before.
This knife?
Yes.
What did he say to you?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
What did you learn from that interview?
I learned from that interview that
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay.
It's not, Your Honor. Well, I apologize.
Thank you. Overruled. You can answer the question.
okay. I learned at that point he identified that as a knife that he thought that he once had. That was followed up on at a later date.
Okay. Did he tell you there was an Indian head missing on one side?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
Did you learn?
Sustained.
Did you learn that he knew there was an Indian head missing on the other side?
I learned from him that the medallion, I guess, if you will, was missing from the other side. Again, followed up on a later date. Pardon?
On the knife that he had.
On a knife that he thought he had.
Is there a medallion missing from this knife?
There is.
Where did it come from? Where did this knife come from? Do
That knife, that's a picture of the knife that we located at the scene of the homicide.
you know where it was at the homicide?
It was on the foot of the bed,
On the foot of the bed.
near the window.
Next to Anita's body.
Correct.
On the same bed.
Correct.
Devin Hall said that he had a knife. I want to make sure I got this right. That was missing a medallion, an Indian head medallion. And you found this knife at the scene.
Your Honor, is there a reason Mr. Sand is moving about the well?
You have an objection, Mr. Nelson?
I do, Your Honor. There's
And-
no purpose for this. He can ask questions at
Overruled.
council table.
Overruled.
Sorry, sir. This is a knife from the murder scene, correct?
Correct.
Devin Hall said that he possessed a knife that was missing an Indian head medallion, correct?
That was missing the medallion, but it was later found out to be a different knife that he was confusing for this knife.
I didn't ask that, and we'll get to that interview
Okay.
because we've just got a recording of it. Devin Hall admitted to having in his possession a knife with a missing medallion Indian head on one side and the Indian head medallion on the other. In that interview, on
Objection, Your Honor. This is asked and answered multiple times at this
well,
point.
if I could respond.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
He admitted to having a knife that was missing the medallion on one side.
And had the Indian head medallion on the other.
Had the medallion on the other side, but he confused it for another knife.
Your Honor, I have to object. That was not, the council did not ask to publish at that point.
The objection is overruled.
Now, you went out to Wolf Point, isn't that right?
Yes, I did.
Did you interview some people out there?
Yes.
Did you interview Miss Howling Wolf? This is important.
What's her first name?
Renita?
What would have it been about? I don't.
Would have been about Devin Hall and this murder.
Okay. I interviewed several.
I tell you that I, in my discovery, have that. Would that make you feel more inclined to say that you went out there and interviewed her, sir?
Yeah, if you're saying I did, I probably did. I interviewed several people out there.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Do you remember interviewing a Natasha Clancy?
I do, yes.
Do you remember interviewing a Donna Follett?
The name sounds familiar, so I believe I do, yes.
And I apologize if I'm getting a little intense. This is important.
Doesn't bother me.
Thank you, sir. Do you recall what happened in those interviews?
I recall some of what happened.
Do you recall what you learned?
I do. To a certain point. I mean, I don't remember everything.
One thing I'd like to ask you, it looks like the last piece of evidence you got was a transcript, correct? That was entered into evidence
From Nichole?
from Nichole.
Correct.
Correct, okay. I have some transcripts here as well.
Okay.
So on June 12th, 2007, did you interview Renita Hollingwolf and Melda Lambert?
On June 12th?
2007.
Can I look at it? It appears that I have a phone call from Renita Howling-Wolf and Melda Lambert, and the date on this is June 12th, and I don't know if it's the date on the top of this, so I'm not sure if it was the date
That's
that
the date of the call.
or the date that they transcribed the call.
Okay. But this is a call between you and Ms. Hollingwolf and Ms. Lambert.
Yes, it appears to be.
Okay. Defense is going to offer this transcript as an exhibit, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state objects. It's full of hearsay.
Your Honor, the state just put a transcript in.
Statements from the defendant are not hearsay by rule.
This is a transcript of a phone call that he conducted, Your Honor. I'm going to ask him about that phone call.
The third party.
The objection is sustained, Mr. Sand. If you want to ask him questions about it, you can ask him questions.
I will. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Can I have you look at this transcript to refresh your recollection? First page is the most important.
Okay. I'm assuming that you just want me to read the first page then?
No, if you could look through the whole thing, I'd appreciate it. Just the first page is the most important. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
You've had a chance to review that?
Yes.
Did you learn from this call that Ms. Howling-Wolf believed that her son, Devin, had done something terrible?
My microphone was off, Your Honor. The objection is hearsay.
Sustained.
What did you learn from review of this?
From reviewing that was a phone call reporting that one of those ladies had talked to somebody in Wolf Point or Fraser, Montana about Devon Hall and asking that these ladies pray for him. And I learned, and it refreshed my memory, that this was all stemming from a lady from Family Services in the Wolf Point area had made a comment that I hope Devon didn't have anything to do with this.
What was their
And
biggest
then-
concern on the front page? I want to ask you to take a look at that. What was their biggest
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
concern? It's not well.
Sustained. can
What
ask
did you
a
learn from
question.
reading that first page?
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
That's not overruled. What did he learn?
I learned that was the phone call that sparked me to follow up on why this lady in Montana was asking these other ladies to pray for Devon Hall.
Why were they asking?
They were asking, like I said, just how rumors go. The lady from Family Services in Montana had made the comment that she hoped that Devon Hall wasn't involved in this, and then that just kind of sparked as rumors do.
Did that create any issues in your mind as to why people would be calling you about hoping Devon Hall didn't kill somebody in Minot?
Certainly, that's why I followed up on it.
Okay. So from your testimony, what I'm understanding is these women called you and were concerned that Devon Hall may have killed someone in Minot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they were saying, or she was saying, asking them to pray for her grandson because that, like I said, that rumor flew once the lady from Family Services brought that up and said, I hope he had nothing to do with that incident in
You know how
Minot.
far Wolf Point is from Minot?
Oh, about a 4-hour drive, I think, 3-4 hour drive.
What follow-up did you do after you found that out?
I interviewed somebody and eventually spoke with, I believe I spoke with the lady from Family Services and discovered that that's where that rumor came from.
From Family Services?
Yeah. I don't recall her name.
Do you recall working with the FBI on this case at all?
Yes.
Do you recall them telling you Devon Hall was the
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you recall their report concluding that Devon Hall was the prime suspect?
Objection, Your Honor. That would be hearsay.
Sustained. You need to ask it a
What do you
different
recall
way.
from that FBI report?
When you
Objection,
asked
Your
if I
Honor, that's
recall
hearsay.
working,
Stop. It's not overruled. You can answer the question.
when you asked, do I recall working with the FBI on this case, my mind immediately went to Wolf Point because I went with FBI agent Ryan O'Neill to Wolf Point. That's what I thought you were getting at. I don't know, when you talk about a report, I don't know what you're referring
Did the
to.
FBI assist you in this investigation at all?
Yes, Ryan O'Neill went to Wolf Point with me, and I believe they looked at the case, but I don't believe I had really anything to do with that.
Do you remember meeting with Natasha Clancy?
I do, yes.
Okay. Can I show you that transcript to refresh your recollection of that?
Sure. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, if you could. Thank you. It's not too long.
Okay.
In conjunction with that, I'm going to have you refresh your recollection on this paragraph of the report right here. Make sure that's the right one. Starting at
Okay.
any case file. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Did you ever refer to that knife as the knife that was used to kill Anita Knutson?
Did I ever refer to?
That knife as the knife that was used to kill Anita Knutson?
Yes, I have here today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you do that when you talked to Miss Clancy?
Um,
Had you take a look at this?
I know you did, but possibly I did. I'm not. I didn't retain it if I did read
One more time. It's the first line.
it. Okay. Okay. Yes, I did.
Okay. You refer to the knife as the knife that was used to kill Anita Knutson, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. What was Miss Clancy's reaction?
When
Objection, Your Honor, that calls for hearsay.
No. Asked for observation, so overruled. What was her reaction?
when I first showed her a picture of the knife, she acted surprised or shocked.
Okay. Do you know Miss Clancy's relationship to Devin Hall?
I believe in the statement I read that she referred to him as her nephew.
Do you remember talking to Miss Follett?
Who is she?
Somebody out in Wolf Point. I
The,
can have you review that.
the name is familiar.
I know it's been a long time, and I appreciate you working with me.
Okay. I remember that name, yes.
Can I have you review that transcript as well?
You want me to
Can
read
I-
the whole thing?
Can I have the attorneys approach
Sure.
the bench, please? You may continue, Mr. Sand.
Have you had a chance to look at that, sir?
I have not.
Okay.
I
Go ahead and take a look at it.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
Yep.
No,
Oh.
he's not going to read it. You want to ask him questions, you can ask him questions.
Okay. I'll take it back, sir.
Okay.
Do you recall anything about your conversation with Miss Follett?
Sitting here right now, no.
It's fair to say you spoke with a number of people out in Wolf Point.
Correct.
Devin Hall's name sounds like it kept coming up. In fact, you went out to Wolf Point and met with Devin Hall, isn't that correct?
I did, yes.
Did you do any investigation on Club 101?
Yes.
Did you go through the records of Club 101 of who had entered?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you learn from that?
Not a whole lot. Learned that Anita Knutson had been at that club, I think around mid-May.
Okay.
I tried to identify active military people, so I sent it to OSI on the Minot Air Force Base for them to review to try and see who was active military on that list. I checked our local files to try and identify local people just to see if I would identify somebody that stuck out for some reason, somebody that was traveling through.
You identified Jerron Vivier. Do you recall that?
Off that list? I do not.
You don't?
I don't.
Can I have you take a look at this to
Sure.
refresh your recollection?
Sure.
It's at the bottom of the page.
Where does it say that he was identified off that list?
I'm just having you refresh your recollection, sure.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see that it says that.
Do you recall a list being part of your report?
What I just read?
No. A list going through who was at Club 101?
I recall that being part of the case file, yes.
Okay. Do you recall Jerron Vivier being there?
At the 101 Club?
Yes.
I do not.
I'm going to switch gears for just a second. I'll be coming back to that. Well, never mind. Do you recall sending a list of who was at the 101 Club to Dan Dahl on July 9th, 2007?
I recall that, and again, I don't recognize the name Dan Dahl, but I recognize the phone number as it being a base-related phone number.
Do you recognize your name there?
And my name, yes. So this must be what I was referring to when I sent it to the base OSI.
So you'd sent this to OSI.
Yes.
And have you refer to the list you sent over. It's alphabetical by first names. In that list, did you send over a person named Jerron Vivier?
Yes.
Okay. And I know it's been a long time, officer, but it's important that we get this right. Can I have that back?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Is Anita Knutson's name on that list as well? That same evening.
Your Honor, at this point, I have to object because we're getting quite a bit of testimony from something that is not answered. I forget how that works because I'm not used to it with Ward
What's
County.
your objection?
The objection is we're getting quite a bit of testimony from an exhibit that's not entered into evidence.
Overruled. He's just using it to refresh his memory about who's on the list.
Yes, I see Anita's name on the list as well.
So based on what you sent over to Mr. Dahl, Anita Knutson and Mr. Vivier were at Club 101 together.
They both appeared to have been there that night. And that's what
Are you aware of Jerron Vivier's connection with Devon Hall?
I know that, I don't know if there's a relation, but at least a friendship.
Are they both from Fort Peck Reservation?
I believe so.
After your interview at Wolf Point, did you do any other follow-up with Devon Hall?
I don't believe that I did. I don't remember that I did anyway.
Did you know anything about Geron Vivier outside of what I've asked you?
During the time of the investigation, I do remember his name, yes. Yes,
Remember Devin's name coming up, obviously. You met with him a couple times.
yes.
You said you didn't like Nicole's demeanor when you saw her. You testified to that earlier.
Yes.
So you had like a hunch you didn't like her demeanor?
During the June 11th interview or at the scene?
At the scene when we were talking about earlier.
When she went in?
When you were talking to the state's attorney.
Yeah, when she went in,
I have a note that says you didn't like her demeanor.
okay. Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but yeah, I would agree with
Maybe
that.
I'm paraphrasing. I apologize.
Okay, I would agree with it though.
Okay. And you'd gone through some text message where they were upset about an alarm clock or something like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we just went over all this testimony about this knife, correct?
Correct.
Devin Hall. Now we're talking about text messages between roommates and an alarm clock. Do you I want to get this right. You didn't do any follow-up on Devin Hall after that interview? You didn't talk to him again?
I don't remember that I did. It's possible
No,
that I did.
I appreciate it, sir. Further questions?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nelson, are you going to have a,
I can be very brief, Your Honor, and we can.
I'll hold you to that, Mr. Nelson.
I appreciate that, Your Honor. You've never been shy about that.
Go ahead.
Was there any information that you learned in your investigation that Jerome Vivier was at all attached to Anita Knutson in any way, shape, or form?
No.
So there's no connection between the two of them other than they both happened to be in the same nightclub on the same night.
Correct.
Were there quite a few other people that were in that same nightclub that same night?
Yes.
Now, why did you follow up with the investigation regarding Devin Hall?
Just because his name came up. I mean, on the information that I've already stated, the lady's asking for somebody to pray for him because he may have been involved in that. His name came up and we needed to either elevate him to the suspect list or dismiss him.
Did you ever get any information that put you to the point where you would elevate him to the suspect list?
I did not.
So it was a lead that you ran down, but a fruitless lead.
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Sand, last chance, recross.
Yes, Your Honor. A fruitless lead, you said?
Yes.
After that interview and seeing this knife, that was a fruitless lead?
It was, yep. Yep, the result of my
That's all I
investment.
got.
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Goodman.
All right. Officer Goodman is hereby subpoena.
He can be released from the state subpoena, Your Honor. My understanding is it's
Sand.
subpoenaed by the defense.
We have him under subpoena of our own as well, Your Honor.
All right, so Mr. Goodman, you're not allowed to go then. You still have a subpoena. So
Do you want me to stay in Grand Forks or can I return
Can I chat
home?
with you after court? Is that all right? We get
Sure.
worked out. Thank you.
Yep.
you're excused. Thank you very much.
Thank you.